We're going to have a look at a typical pre-pour footpath inspection. Prior to any of the inspectors attending site, one of the most important things that the contractor can do in their preparation is ensuring that the actual base that the footpath's going to be constructed on is compacted to a really high standard. We're finding the contractors are more and more putting the effort in, similar to what they would do with a road pavement, for the simple reason that when it gets a loading, once the construction activity is completed and the houses start to get built, that if they haven't got that firm compaction base, that we're getting subsidence and footpath base cracking, which is a risk to the contractor and also a risk to cancel down the track. So what we're finding, instead of the old days where they used to use a whacker plate to go over the top to prep the base, they're actually putting 3-ton rollers into the compaction and actually presenting a really firm base, which is a really good outcome for the contractor but also for council. Right, so what we'll do is we'll have a look here today that this particular inspection is quite complex, and there's a number of things that the inspector will be looking for when he attends site. Probably the first and foremost one is to check his approved engineering plans. In this case, it's pretty much a standard, a 1.5 width footpath. So a lot of the inspectors will have their straight edge that we use for our road construction measuring. On this particular one, we have 1.5 spacing. On the actual footpath, it's 1.5 wide. On average, it's a 1 in 40 crossfall. So the guys are basically looking for approximately 37 mil or 40 mil of crossfall. So just to check this one, for example, we'll put our edge across. We can see that it's 1.5, which is great. We put our level on, we bring it back up, back into line, which is approximately 30 mil there. So it's 30 to 40, which is a good outcome. From there, once we're standing here, the guys would tend to look down the timbers. We've got the actual crossfall and we've got the width. We'd actually look for the actual alignment of the timbers to make sure they're not up and down, they're nice and straight and not in and out. So that's a reasonably visual one. It's important that the crushed rock bedding extends a minimum of 50 mil on the property side of the footpath and a minimum of 75 mil on the curb side. One of the really important parts of the inspection is ensuring that as per the IDM that we have a minimum of 125 mil cover for the concrete. In this instance here, we're measuring down, we've got approximately 130. So that's a really well presented base and that's ready to pour in that section. As per the IDM, this has got installed a SL72 mesh supported by bar chairs, so as that the mesh is going to be centrally located when the concrete's poured. The other thing the inspectors will be looking for, and it's really important, is the expansion joints, that normally within the IDM that they're approximately 15 metres. Most of the allotments that we have are 15 metres across. What we like to have them is reasonably centrally located. We try to avoid them being too close to a vehicle crossing, because obviously with the 3 reinforced bars, it's probably the weaker point, so centrally located within the allotment is a good position to have them. The other thing that we encourage, that it's not in the IDM, but we encourage the contractors to do as a good work practice, is that if we come in here, we can actually show you this one, for example, is that we like the bar to be actually wired in and supported under bar chairs to avoid when the concreter comes along and puts his weight on when he's pouring the concrete. They quite often, if not supported or tied in, they'll pop up, and we've had it in the instances whereby during the defect liability period that the starter bars are just below the surface, and with a little bit of ground movement, they're popping a hole in it and becoming a defect, or if it's past the defect liability period, it's a risk to council that bay has to be replaced. So doing some good prep work here from the concreters, it's a good outcome for council and also the contractor. The starter bar diameter has now increased from 12 millimetres to a minimum of 16 millimetres. One of the other important inspections when you're attending a footpath inspection is that the power pits need to be set with the same gradient as the timbers and the crossfall of the footpath. We'll go and have a look at one now. Right, when inspecting the power pit within the footpath, it's really important that we ensure that it's set to the grade of the timbers, which is the crossfall of the footpath. In this instance, it's spot on. We'll check our depth as usual, which is the 125. We have a visual look, and the actual SL72 reinforcement is well supported with the bar chairs, and this section's pretty much ready to pour. One final thing, when the inspectors are inspecting the footpath, some of the contractors will actually undertake the infill for the vehicle crossings as part of the one pour. That's basically the same setup with your base, your timbers, your mesh, your bar chairs. In this instance here, they've decided to do it at a later date, so the inspector will get called out with a similar setup. The difference being that that'll have starter bars into the actual vehicle crossing layback. They've already put the holes in there for their starter bars. They'll have starter bars drilled into the actual footpath once the timbers have been removed, and it's important that they prep the base as per they do with the footpath, similar to what they do with the road. What we're finding at the City of Greater Geelong is that the contractors are looking ahead to the EDL period and trying to protect any movement that may happen with their concrete works, and they're actually putting in some expansion joint foam when they pour their infills between the layback and also the infill of the concrete vehicle crossing. What that does over the time when we get that initial movement, once the subdivision's been constructed, it's giving that little bit of a protection or a barrier to stop the actual layback popping when the concrete, if it's hard up against it, having that expansion foam. When we go to the end of the defect liability period inspection after the 12 months, we're finding that we're not having as many issues as the ones that don't put the foam. So I thoroughly recommend for a couple of dollars of foam, have the contractors just take that little bit of extra care, and I think it's a better outcome, not only for the contractor, but also for council in the long term.